Alright guys, Simon here. So we're playing SimCity 4 Deluxe Edition. Oh, I need to turn the audio down. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while. Let's turn off music. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. Basically playing SimCity 4 and discussing urban planning issues while we do it. Now I haven't done it for a long time because I was thinking about the problems with the SimCity 4 simulation. It's not a very good simulation. Well, it's an interesting game, it's not a very realistic simulation. Let's just say that. So, I'm going to do it anyway, but as we go through this, let's keep in mind that there are some severe limitations with this model, as it were. Okay, so what I think I'll do is for the first video, it might be a long video, I don't know how long it'll be. We'll go through the tutorials of the game, just see what the game itself teaches us first, and then I'll start talking about other things. Alright, so let's just go through tutorials one by one. There's like 5 tutorials, and they should be pretty short. And we'll play through them, but also we'll think about what they're actually teaching us. Alright, getting started. So it says, welcome to the Getting Started tutorial. This tutorial is a step-by-step introduction to the basics of being the mayor of your very own city. Terraforming, making money, big city, and rush hour tutorials are also available in the Timbuktu region. If you already know the basics of getting a city up and running, you might try one of those tutorials. Let's just go. So we have God mode, mayor mode, my sim mode. God, mayor, my sim. Lets you do powerful city altering things such as creating mountains and valleys, incorporating or destroying a city, change day to night, or pelt your city with disasters. Roll the curve, blah 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 blah. Okay, mayor mode. So you can see terraforming tools. We're not going to do those. Mayor mode is where you spend most of the game, setting up zones, laying out transportation networks, powering water systems, and choosing civic buildings. Huh, interesting. Well, let's just hover over the different buttons to see what you can do in mayor mode. Let's just analyze this paragraph. I feel like we're doing homework or something. So this is most of the game is in mayor mode. Look at this. So they list laying out transportation networks, power and water systems, and setting up zones, transport, power water systems, and choosing civic buildings. So they list those 4 things as being what the game is about. That's interesting to keep in mind. Setting up zones, transportation networks, power and water systems, and choosing civic buildings. Alright, let's just keep going. Click on my sim mode to continue. This is not really all that important. You can put some sims in and they'll talk to you, but they don't really say anything useful really. You can move an individual sim into a house to get feedback on their neighborhood or to follow their lives. Ask any sim on the street how they feel about things with a microphone tool. Yeah, you can also take control of a vehicle. I'm not going to do that. That's kind of a waste of time for us. Maybe I'll do that at some point in the future, just for fun. Using this tutorial, you can exit this tutorial at any time. If you'd like to return to tutorials once you've exited them, simply select Reset Tutorials in the Play Options dialog, access via Options menu. Alright, continue. Where should we start? This town has been incorporated and you're the mayor. You control the layout of your city. You control the layout of your city. The layout. It's kind of analyzing their words. Because we're trying to understand what the game designers think we should be doing, right? So before we had a list of things that we do in the game. Here we're saying the game is about controlling the layout of the city. Right? It's your job to say where the Sims can live, work, and shop. Your job to say where they live, work, and shop. Right? You also get to say where civic buildings like power plants and schools get built. So your layout of the city, zones, civic buildings, power plants and schools. You've got a bunch of cash and some pristine land. Try to make a thriving metropolis. Try to make a thriving metropolis. Notice that they assume that you will be building a really big city, a thriving metropolis as they call it, a really dense, high population density city. So, I mean, we can see that there are some built-in assumptions as to what you should be doing in this game. And some people who play SimCity 4, they don't do that. Like they'll build low density, or they'll build small towns or villages, or they'll build quiet neighborhoods instead of a thriving metropolis. And some people have criticized SimCity 4 for encouraging New York. Like you end up, like the default outcome really is to end up with a city like New York all the time. And you see what that means. I mean, if you've never played SimCity 4, you'll find out what that means later on. What should you do first? First, zone some land for homes. Alright, so they're going to teach us what to do first. Select Mayor Mode. To zone some land for homes, click on the highlighted buttons and select the Low Density Residential Zone tool. Medium and high density are too expensive for us right now, so they're telling you low density is cheaper. And you just start with that. If you hover over a button with the mouse for a few seconds, you'll get more info about it. This might help you remember what things in the menu do and where to find them. So this kind of stuff, this is the simulation. This is kind of what I was talking about early on. In real life, zoning really is you drawing, lines on a map. This doesn't really cost you anything to say this is low density or high density. Later on, it might cost you money, because if it's high density, then you need to supply the buildings with more infrastructure, like bigger pipes for water, because it's more people living there, they use more water. Bigger roads, because there's more people living there, so you need more roads to accommodate the cars and so on. So density does affect how expensive the infrastructure is. But in the game, it's kind of abstract. Like, it's not really, it says there it costs $10 per square, that costs $20 per square, that costs 50. Like, it doesn't really kind of tell us why it's costing us different amounts of money to zone different amounts of land. In the real world, it's different. Like, sometimes there's like a tax for developers for zoning the land, so there's a development tax. So actually zoning land gives the city money instead of taking it away, although you have to spend that money on roads and sewers and whatnot. So this is odd and unrealistic, but we're just gonna go with it. Zoning is a two-step process. First, click and hold the left mouse button on one corner of the flashing yellow grid. Next, drag the mouse pointer to the opposite corner of the flashing area and release the left mouse button. By the way, the yellow grid won't appear in non-tutorial cities, just there to show you where we want you to zone. Try this now. See, this is the Manhattan thing, or the New York thing. Everything's on a grid in this game, and so you end up with a lot of rectangles. Kind of like in Minecraft, you have cubes, so everything's square. And this is not realistic, in case you don't know, because in the real world, there's no grid on the ground unless you draw it there. So there's a lot of curves and diagonals and things in the real world. In this game, not so much. So this is going to be one of the limitations of this game. So let go. Great, you've made your first residential zone, R zone for short. Once Sims have everything they need, they'll start to build houses on the green R zone you just laid out. Do all buildings build on their own? No. As you see in a moment, you can place fully built civic buildings, like power plants and schools. Remember, buildings in zones grow on their own when they have what they need. Buildings in zones grow on their own when they have what they need. That's another thing to keep in mind as well. Like, there's this assumption of just automatic growth. If you supply the zone with, well, it says there they need power. You see that little the little red circles and the yellow things. It means they need power. So if you supply them with what they need, they will automatically grow. So if it's low density, or I guess if you zone low density, then it will stay low density. But the population will increase as much as you allow them to. And that's something else that's kind of unrealistic, because there's this assumption of continuous growth. Whereas in some parts of the world it's kind of true. In other parts of the world you don't always grow just because you let people grow. Because maybe there's not enough money, there's no jobs, there's not enough resources, or the climate's just too cold. It's not that simple. It's not like you give people power and water and food and money and then they'll just grow. Maybe they will actually, who knows. like Europe and Japan have problems with low fertility rates, and so the populations are set to decline in the near future. And it's not because they're poor, it's not because they don't have power, right? They're quite wealthy countries, but so that assumption is slightly odd. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. So let's continue. Buildings need power, yes. So why are no Sims moving in and building homes? The little lightning bolts above the green residential zones offer a clue. They have no power. Let's fix that now. Alright, we're gonna build a coal power plant right next to the houses. Interesting. Good work, it says. Not really. Oh wait, how fast are we? Oh, they've automatically set the speed up. You'll see that the lack of power indicators over the residential zones are gone. They now have plenty of power. You should see some Sims starting to build homes now. Remember, zones won't develop until they have power through them. Click continue button to move forward, right? Industrial zones. Sims need places to live and also places to work. So they're kind of teaching you the basics of a city, right? You need residential, and now you have industrial, which is, well, industry, right? The coal plant provides a few jobs. See, that's one of the things they don't tell you. The coal plant actually provides jobs. Like in the game, you can't just click on it and see how many jobs you get, and you don't click on the houses, and you can click on the houses to see how many people live there. You can't click on, well, some buildings you can see how many jobs it provides. I don't think the power plant does. We'll look at it later on. So how do we make more jobs? Industrial zones provide lots of jobs. Click on the highlighted buttons and select medium density industrial zone 2 from the zone industrial menu, right? Zone industrial, yes. So there's a lot of tooltips too, so that's useful. If you are interested in reading all of these things, they actually tell you how they work. But we're playing video games, we're not here to read. Alright, let's just do this. There we go, good. We built the industrial zone a little bit away from the residential zone because dirty industry makes a lot of pollution. So they're teaching you some basics. And in game, as in real life, yes, industry does create pollution, and you don't really want to have them close to the houses where people live, because then, it's not healthy, nor is it pleasant. So the two zones are not connected. Let's take care of that. Click continue. The streets that were built during the zoning process are just that, secondary streets. They can't handle a lot of traffic. Roads allow more cars to drive at a higher speeds than the smaller capacity streets. Building roads. Let's build a road from the houses to the factories to provide a good thoroughfare for commuters. Click the highlighted buttons and select the road tool. Yep. And now click and hold the left mouse button at one end of the yellow flashing area. Drag the mouse pointer to the other end. Alright, so build a road there. The two areas are now connected by a road, but the industrial zone needs power before factories will build there. We could run power lines from the power plant or the residential zone, but instead we'll kill two birds with one stone. Or with one zone, my bad. Let's power the industrial zone by making a commercial zone. This will connect all the zones, allowing power to flow through them all. So zones somehow transfer power as well, which is interesting. It's obviously it's a simplification for the simulation, right? It's not. You need power lines in the real world. You can just kind of connect if there are buildings there. But anyway, we'll just go with that. So commercial zones, we've placed places for our Sims to live and work, but we have nowhere to shop. Let's make a commercial zone for shops and offices. Commercial zones, they actually, I feel like they work better for providing jobs than for shopping. I think that's what they actually are in this game as well. I'm not sure though. Again, like the rules of the simulation are sometimes not very clear in this game. A lot of times not very clear in this game. We can talk more about that. We can talk more about that later on. And just keep in mind the sizes of these things too. Like when you do that, you see how it's 3 deep one way and then 3 deep the other way. So 1 by 3. And then here there's no really any outlines. And then for the commercial zone, it's 2 and 1. That's actually really bad. Isn't it that really bad? I'm not sure. You just do what they say. Good, now we're in business. You'll start to see some shops and factories soon. There's some factories, there's some shops. And more Sims moving in too. Remember power flows through zones. Click continue to move ahead. And see how, once the conditions are right, they'll just grow. Which is odd, because in the real world, sometimes even if the conditions are right, they won't grow. Or, you think the conditions are right, but obviously you haven't got it right because it's not growing. At other times, you grow even when the conditions are wrong. And that happens a lot in developing countries, where people move into the cities, even though the cities can't really accommodate them, and then they end up in the slums, and they're trying to find jobs and everything else, and everything's bad. And the city can't afford to build roads and sanitation and power grids and all that, and things are just bad for everyone. So that happens in the real world. So even when the city is not ready, people just kind of move in because they have nowhere else to go because they don't have jobs anywhere else. And this game doesn't do that. Obviously it's kind of depressing if you play a game and there's slums everywhere and there's nothing you can do about it. But that's how it is in the real world sometimes. So yeah. Zoom in. Now that we have a few Sims in town, let's learn how to move around and change our view. First, let's take a closer look. Alright, zoom in. Zoom in, zoom in. Oops. Too far. Zoom back out. And click continue. Scrolling or centering the view. To scroll the view, move the cursor over your city, then press the right mouse button and drag in the direction you want to scroll. Or move the cursor to an edge of the screen to scroll in that direction. That's really slow though. To center the city in the current cursor position, just click and release the right mouse button. Yep, continue. You can decide how fast you want simulated time to progress in your city using the speed controller. You can run the simulation at any of the 3 speeds. I don't know why they gave them animal names though. The simulation, I think this is like from all the way from the first SimCity game. The simulation is currently moving ahead slowly at turtle speed. Let's pause the game right now. Paused. Notice that all the Sims and cars have stopped moving around and that the days have stopped moving ahead in the calendar. Yep. You can still make changes to your city while the game is paused, but the Sims and the simulation won't know about them until you speed things up again. Right. Education is important. Our city is starting to grow, but there's no school for the little Sims. Better educated Sims want better, higher paying jobs. These better paying jobs generate more tax revenue and less pollution than dirty industry, which is what we have now. Again, we have another assumption of the game, is that you want to increase the education level, you want the higher paying jobs, and you kind of want to replace the dirty industry. Like, you read that paragraph, and you see those assumptions being built into the game. You want people to get rich, which again is not all that realistic. I don't know, I'll talk about it here. Like what happens, you see these people, they kind of just appeared out of nowhere. The roads don't actually lead anywhere. Once you put the zone down and they put the power in, the houses just appeared. Like where did the people come from? It doesn't really matter in this game, they just appear. And again, like when they get better educated and I guess the assumption is that the same people are getting better educated and getting richer and then getting better jobs, and it's just the same people the whole time. But that's not actually is like, it doesn't actually say that in the game. In the real world, what happens is when the city gets better, richer people move in, they kind of force the poor people out by making everything expensive. Imagine if rich people come in, they buy the houses, and what, you're not going to sell them? Of course you're going to sell them, you get money for it, right? And so then the poor people they can't afford to live there anymore because they can't buy new houses in the same area because the rich people have moved in and they've kind of pushed the prices up because they can afford to. And so then it's called gentrification, right? So they gentrify the neighborhood, and the rich people come in, the poor people move out, and they have to go somewhere else. Like here, we're assuming that the same people get richer and more educated. But in the real world, if you provide better education, and you provide a better environment, you provide better jobs, people will come in from outside. And then they'll push the poor people out. And so you're kind of leeching off rich people coming from other places, and then you're kind of just shoveling your poor people out for someone else to deal with. And that's, I mean, it's good for you, right? If you're the mayor of that particular part of town, but someone else has to deal with this. So it's not really, I mean, it's not always like that. Eventually, if you provide good education, then eventually, after a few generations, everybody gets educated. But that takes a long time, and in the meantime, there's this gentrification going on. That's not very good. Not good for some people. It's good for other people, of course. Anyway, let's not get too caught up in that. Education, yes, it is important. I'm not saying it's not. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you know, there are things to consider. Click the highlighted buttons and select the elementary school and build education system menu. Oh, I've done that already. You see that you have an image of the school attached to your cursor. You should also see the coverage ring for the school. Place the school on the flashing yellow grid in the community, right there. Hold off on other surfaces. Good, the education level of Sims that live near the school will slowly increase, right? So they're explaining the mechanics of the simulation to you. You put a school in, education level will increase. Now you might want to build all sorts of services like water pumps and police stations, but hold off for a bit. Your city doesn't really need those things until it gets bigger, and you can't really afford them yet. There's no water, you might notice. Like, there's only power, there's no water supply. I don't know what these people are doing. I don't know what they're drinking, to be honest. Like, they have a well out back or something? Try the Making Money tutorial for further details. Yep, okay. So they're actually telling you how to succeed in this game, kind of. You can build houses, build the industrial and commercial, build a school, build power plants. Hold off on the other stuff. That happens in the real world too, so you know, if the city can't afford something, then they can't afford it. And so these people are living without water, without sanitation, basically. Good luck. Alright. We've pretty much covered the basics. We're all set, but remember, every so often a little emergency may pop up. Fire! Yay! Click continue to move forward. We need to build a fire station. Well, so much for holding off on services, right? Click on the highlighted button, select small fire station, place it in the flashing yellow grid. And alright, dispatch. Let's just do that. Interesting that they tell you to put the fire station there. Most of the fire risk is going to be in the industrial area in this game. Again, I don't know how realistic that is. I guess it's kind of realistic. But in SimCity 4, the industries create most of the fire risk. So usually you kind of put, because you see that it's got that circle thing. That's the fire protection coverage. It reduces the fire risk in those areas. That's kind of taking a long time, isn't it? Oh, that's because I was just talking and not actually doing anything earlier on, so other buildings are on fire as well. Alright, so that's done. You've got the basics to start building your own cities. Keep in mind that you have a team of advisors to help steer you in the right direction and to alert you to problems in your city as they crop up. Meet them now. Yes, these guys. They're not actually that helpful. I guess they're helpful if you're first starting out and you don't know what you're doing. They're kind of helpful. Each of your advisors covers a different aspect of your city. Move the mouse over each advisor and leave it there for a moment. A tooltip will appear that tells you more about each advisor. Hover over any button in the game to read its tooltip. I mean, this game actually gives you a lot of help, which is good. City planner will give you tips on building a city and popularity, finance, utilities, public safety, health and education, transportation, environment. So that's helpful. I mean, it kind of puts all your all your jobs into categories, things you need to keep an eye on. It is a kind of a complicated game, even though it's a really simplified simulation of real-world city planning. It's still really complicated. Alright. Neil Fairbanks. Hi. He'll help you out with all the basics of running an efficient city. Check out your advisors while you build your city, especially when the background behind the head turns red. That means they have something more important to tell you. It means you're running into disaster is what it means. Congratulations, you've completed this tutorial. Alright. Look at that. You can continue to the next tutorial by going to the region view and select the Terraforming tutorial city. You can also continue to play this city. You as mayor are free to add into it in any way you please, whether you prefer a farming village or a gigantic metropolis. Whether you prefer a farming village or a gigantic metropolis. The choice is yours. You might start by adding some more residential zones. Click exit tutorial. So it tells you you have the option of building a farming village, although you've already put in industry, so I don't know what you're gonna farm. And they also say you might want to start adding more residential zones, so much for a small farming village, right? They're more pushing you towards the metropolis, I feel like. Exit and place city. Let's just look at this for a little bit. Flat piece of land, not very interesting, although easy to build on. A little bit of water. They put the power plant right next to the residential zone. I mean, they tell you to put this far away to prevent the pollution, but then they put this right here, and then the coal power plant does create pollution. You can look at the air pollution there. Oh, I don't know if you can see these words in YouTube because it's kind of small, isn't it? Anyway, so air pollution, there's the culprit there. Yes, not very good, is it? Alright, well, let's play the other tutorials. Let's just go save and exit. I hope it doesn't lag when it does that.